talking about the journey that we've been on as people who live in the United States of America towards freedom. We've been on a long journey towards freedom that we're still on. And I'd like to begin by having us create a sacred space here together, because as we do this work of creating sacred space, that's where we get to start to feel what true freedom is. It all begins with a spiritual freedom. So one way to create a sacred space is to chant together something simple. So I'd like us to chant together the Hindu chant that goes Om Mane Padme Om. Om Mane Padme Om. Om Mane Padme Om. And what it means is that we, as an individual person, individual being, are opening our hearts to the divine beingness that exists all around us and everywhere, so that we're bringing ourselves into divine unity, into unity. So we're opening our hearts to come into this unity as we say Om Mane Padme Om. So let's close our eyes and just feel ourselves, and together, all of us, invoking the presence of Spirit. Om Mane Padme Om. Om Mane Padme Om. Om Mane Padme Om. Om Mane Padme beautiful feeling that we've created already, isn't it? A young mother told me this week that she was going around the house chanting this, Om Mane Padme Om, and her little 3-year-old started following her around chanting it too, and he started saying, Home, Mommy, Papa, home, home, Mommy, Papa, home. That will change it forever for me. Don't you think that's what it really means? Home, Mommy, Papi, home. That's what we all want, that secure feeling. The freedom that we all want is that kind of freedom that that child was expressing, the freedom to let go and know that we're loved and know that we're secure and that we're accepted just as we are for who we are, that we're free to express our true selves, our essence selves, and to be our best selves, to come home to ourselves is this freedom that we all want, the freedom of mind, so that we can dwell together in harmony, in unity. I've been traveling over the last little while in Europe, as you may know, and it impressed me how long humans have been on this journey towards freedom, and what a lot of struggles that we've been through. And you go out throughout Europe and you learn about the different wars and oppressions, and some people coming forth and trying to be themselves, and other people squelching them and oppressing them. And you just feel, ooh, this has been a long journey that we've been on towards freedom. And then when I got all the way to Ireland, which is what I want to focus in on today, last week I talked more about my Mary Magdalene journeys through France, and I'll return to that. But today I want to zero in on Ireland, because when I got all the way to Ireland, that feeling of Om, Mommy, Papa, home was so vivid there in that land. And I almost had a feeling like they knew what freedom was and harmony was in a very deep way for a very long time, and that we've just been on a big detour, and that we're coming all the way through, hopefully, all the way through to remember what the ancient ones knew a long, long time ago. So we've got to inspire one another to remember and to provide the kind of environment where we can be our true selves, and to keep on heading home and knowing that we're here to bring this freedom through to another level, through to the next greatest level. That's why we're here, because we know we're headed home. We're going to get there. And Cerise is going to come and sing, lead us in a song that helps us to celebrate this.
Good morning, friends. Happy summertime. I need your help with this song. It's a word from Ghana, and the word is wo-ya-ya. Can you say that? Wo-ya-ya. Beautiful. So you're going to sing that. I'm going to start it with you as a little chant, and it's going to keep going and going and going until wo-ya-ya is the journey of itself. And what wo-ya-ya means is we are going. So from the moment we arrive in the world, we are going. And the song says, heaven knows where we are going. We will get there. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We will get there. We know we will. So, can you give me that C, Richard? So you're going to sing with me. Wo-ya-ya, wo-ya-ya, wo-ya-ya. Beautiful. Wo-ya-ya. Just keep that going. Wo-ya-ya, 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 wo-ya-ya. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We know we will. Wo-ya-ya. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, we are going. Heaven knows how we are going. We know we will. We know, and the road will be muddy and rough. We will get there. Heaven knows where we are going. We know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. 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 Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Thank you.
That sounds really good. Being on the journey, doesn't it? Oh, I feel like you're on a boat on the journey. Oh. Do we have any children here under 18 that would like to be blessed onto their Sunday school class? Marielle. So glad you're here with us. Hey, sweetie, what's your name? Kemi? Kemi and Marielle. And it's okay if you want to stay up with your mom too. It's a fun thing to do. So, thanks for being here. Thanks for being yourselves and giving us hope for the future, because you are being your essence self shining out to us. And that's why we adults want to give you some appreciation and rub our hands together and say to you that we love you. We love you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ light shining in you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Patrice. And now I'd like you to turn to one another and just say thanks for being here to one another. And introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know like this. I think with certain hopes for inspiration and maybe for healing, and maybe we're carrying a prayer request or a burden in our hearts for people in our lives, and we come here with our hopes and our needs. And you know, our ancestors came here to the United States with their hopes and their needs and their spiritual inspiration. And so we're here, sitting right here, because some people journeyed with hope to come here. I mean, some of us may have Native American blood in us, and their people were here a long, long time ago, and maybe originally journeyed from somewhere else to come. But the journey, it's universal, this journey towards hope and towards freedom. But on July 4th, we just celebrated, I believe if my math is correct, the 237th anniversary of America's freedom from an autocratic, tyrannical, overly bossy King George V. And it seems like maybe the fireworks are to let out this big burst to say, just in case anybody is thinking about colonializing us again, we're still here and we're not giving up our freedoms. That's one thing that those fireworks could be saying. So to celebrate our freedom on the 4th of July, we do things. We almost all take the day off of work, and we have gatherings with our families and friends, and we celebrate in the wonderful way that Ashland does with parades and music. And there's all these ways that we have of actually getting out there and physically celebrating our freedom. But I hope that we did also on this past 4th of July and during this weekend think about being thankful for and like giving homage to, in a way, honoring what it took to get all the way through to this freedom. The struggles that have gone on and the protesters that are still going on to work for freedom. And we've got a lot to celebrate just recently here because of the big movement that took place in our Supreme Court towards freedom for gay, lesbian people to be able to marry, a federally approved final right. So we've been on these journeys towards freedom and justice for all. You know, it says that in our Constitution, but the for all part, we've had some long work to do to come all the way through to the for all part. There are people right now in Turkey and in Egypt and Yemen and Afghanistan and Syria and all over the world who are looking to America as a place of freedom and envying the degree of freedom that we have, you know. So sometimes we can get kind of critical about our homeland, but we still are a beacon light of freedom all over the world that people are looking toward. So I think it's a worthy topic for us to really delve into and talk about today. What are we doing with this freedom that we have that others are looking to us to carry forth and represent? I think it's probably the most basic value that identifies America, the United States of America, to people all over the world, is that word freedom. It's embedded deeply in our psyche, in our national character. And today, of course, like I've said, we realize that our founding fathers, when they said that in the Declaration of Independence that there is liberty and justice for all, and that all men have the right to seek liberty and justice and happiness, that even that word men in there, you know, had to be adjusted, because it wasn't really until the 1920s that women got to vote, and women were not allowed to own property separate from their husbands until after that. So we've come a long ways, and we can't help but just mention, you know, the long ways that we still have to go in relation to rights for African American people and Native American people right here in our own country, and the things that we still need to do to rectify those terrible things that have happened in the founding of the United States. So just can't help but say that in the same mouthful that we talk about freedom. We have to speak to the places that we have yet to go. And then freedom for us people here at Unity is it's a spiritual value. And I think when people say you're from Unity or you come to Unity, it might be the same as saying you're from the United States in terms of this freedom thing, right? Because when you think about Unity, I think you think about freedom. Freedom to be yourself. That's what drew me to it. Freedom to express my own varied theological and world religions viewpoints. Freedom to be accepted for who I am. Maybe that's why you came too. Maybe it was a long journey for you to get here. It was for me. I didn't come to Unity until I moved here, which was 10 years ago. And it was a great sense of liberation for me to find Unity. And maybe it's been that for you too. So we have a great freedom here. We have a freedom to not only be who we are, but to become who we are, to become our better selves. We have a freedom to experiment amongst ourselves with one another and to know that we might make mistakes and we might say the wrong things or do things that we don't like after we've expressed them, and that we're in a loving community that holds us and that values this freedom of expression and that will steer us back and keep us in community and keep us on the journey together. I think that's what I really value about our community here and our ability to hang in there and be together. So we're getting ready to celebrate the 10th anniversary of my sojourn with Unity here and all of yours. And this Unity has been going on for a long time. When Kathy Garrett gets back here with us, she was in on the original board of the founding of Unity in Ashland, which I think took place about, I've got to get the right number, but I think it was over 30 years ago now. And so we are celebrating a freedom that we want to hold dear and come to understand here in Unity too. So today I want to talk to us about what this freedom means. And to end this part of my introduction to it, have you ever heard what Chris Christopherson and Janis Joplin said about freedom and what it means?
Yeah, another word for nothing left to lose.
That's it. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. So when you think about what that means, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. It's sort of that I can do anything because I've got nothing left to lose. You know, I'm not afraid of anything. And I think that's a big part of Unity, is that we're not afraid. We're not having a spirituality based on fear. But within this, it's kind of paradoxical too, because there are things that we don't want to lose too. You know, there's things like our families and one another and our love for each other. And there are some things that are very valuable to us and that we don't want to lose. And so what I started thinking about this week is that there's freedom from and there's freedom for. So there's things that we do need freedom from. We need to get free from, and there's things that we need to move toward to have freedom to do these things. So freedom from constraints, freedom from judgments, freedom from prison, freedom from war, freedom from a lot of things. And then freedom to be able to act for the highest good, to be able to love one another the way we choose. Freedom from could be considered as sort of a precondition of freedom for. That you have to be freed up from some things in order to be able to have your energy to be free for. So as I walked around Ireland, everywhere you go, the people there say to you, "No worries now. No worries now." So if you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have the right change," "No worries now." Or, "I tripped over your toe," "No worries now." Or, you know, whatever goes slightly wrong, they say, "No worries now." And my daughter's been confronting me because I tend to say, when something starts to go wrong, "Uh-oh." And she said, I need to get free from saying, uh-oh, and, change it into, no worries now. No worries now. So, yeah, so we've got to get freed up from some old habit patterns so that we can be in a mindset to act with this freedom for and freedom toward where we're going. So I'd like now on that note to have Gloria come up, and she's going to read us a poem from Kahil Gibran. And this is the beginning of going back in time. And you're going to be amazed at what he said so long ago, because it's so apropos for us today, this deep call that we have to realize what freedom's all about. Kahil Gibran.
The freedom we all long for. On freedom. Kahil Gibran. At the city gate and by your fireside, I have seen you prostrate yourself and worship your own freedom. Even as slaves humble themselves before a tyrant and praise him though he slays them. I, in the grove of the temple and in the shadow of the citadel, I have seen the freest among you wear their freedom as a yoke and a handcuff. And my heart bled within me. For you can only be free when even the desire of seeking freedom becomes a harness to you, and when you cease to speak of freedom as a goal and a fulfillment. You shall be free, indeed, when your days are not without a care, nor your nights without a want and a grief, but rather, when those things girdle your life and yet you rise above them, unbound. And how shall you rise beyond your days and your nights, unless you break the chains which you at the dawn of your understanding have fastened around your noon hours? In truth, that which you call freedom is the strongest of these chains, though its links glitter in the sun and dazzle your eyes. But what is it but fragments of your own self you would discard that you may become free? If it is a despot you would dethrone, see first that his throne erected within you is destroyed. If it is a care you would cast off, that care has been chosen by you rather than imposed on you. And if it is a fear you would dispel, the seat of that fear is in your heart and not in the land of the feared. When the shadow fades and is no more, the light that lingers becomes a shadow to another light, and thus your freedom, when it loses its fetters, becomes itself the fetter of a greater freedom.
Still digesting that. Beautiful writing. So when we're singing about freedom in this song, which I'm going to ask you to sing with me, we're going to sing, "Freedom's coming and it won't be long." We remember that freedom is actually available in each moment, and that's what we're going to point to. Whether you're in prison, that reading made me think so much of Mandela and Dr. Martin Luther King, and folks who, even when freedom was taken away, drew from a greater freedom, a greater well of freedom. So that's what we're going to point to now. And let's have B flat. So this is the chorus we're going to sing. Freedom coming and it won't be long. Can you sing that with me? Freedom coming and it won't be long. Beautiful. every time I introduce a line, then we'll sing back, freedom coming and it won't be long. And you can actually look at the folks around you. You can actually stand up and clap your hands, embrace your freedom. And when you say freedom coming and it won't be long, you can take a look right at somebody around you and tell them, freedom coming and it won't can you feel it now? Freedom coming and it won't be long. I feel it in the air, can we bring it down? Freedom coming and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, hey, freedom coming and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, hey, freedom coming and it won't be long. It starts when you opening up your heart. Say freedom coming and it won't be long. And sometimes that's the hardest part. Say freedom coming and it won't be long. Hey, freedom, freedom, say freedom coming and it won't be long. Oh, freedom, freedom, say freedom coming and it won't be long. I got freedom in my heart, I'm gonna give it to you. Say freedom coming and it won't be long. Because that's what I am here to do. Say freedom coming and it won't be long. Hey, freedom, freedom, say freedom coming and it won't be long. Ah, freedom, freedom, yeah, freedom coming and it won't be long. Well, sometimes freedom has a quiet voice. Freedom coming and it won't be long. It can help you when you got to make that choice to say freedom coming and it won't be long. Ah, freedom, freedom, hey, freedom coming and it won't be long. Hey, freedom, freedom, say freedom coming and it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, say freedom coming and it won't be long. Hey, freedom, freedom, freedom coming and it won't be long. Hey, freedom coming and it won't be. I'm telling you, freedom coming and it won't be. Hey, freedom coming and it won't. It's here right now. Freedom coming and it won't. I see it in your eyes. Freedom coming and it won't. It's in disguise. Coming and it won't be long. Freedom coming and it won't be long.
Freedom's coming and it won't be long. And as Khalil Gibran's beautiful writing says to us, it's an inner work. It's an inner work, this freedom. And we can't just go around as a country, the United States, saying all over the world, we bring you freedom, we bring you freedom, without doing this inner work. And that's what Khalil Gibran was talking about so long ago. It's right there, the message for our nation today. And as I traveled around Europe, the pain that I encountered because of all of the battles and difficulties and oppressions that have gone on in Europe was pretty intense. And I bet that maybe when people come to the United States and they journey to some places like maybe Lake of the Woods, places where Native American people were killed, and they journey to some places where people were in stocks, or they journey to some places where people have been in prisons, slave things took place, they might feel that kind of pain that I felt when I was journeying around Europe, you know. But I must say that when I got to Ireland, it was like a balm to the soul. It was like food, deep spiritual food, to a part of me that needed reviving and that needed hope. And so the Emerald Isle, I'd always heard about it. I'd always wanted to go there. And I got to experience the essence of the energy of that place. Everything is charged there with symbols of supernatural, gentle, and magical nature. You know, the place has a reputation for being the home of the fairies. And we get the picture in our mind of little twittering fairies like Tinkerbell. But that's not what the Irish really picture as the fairies. It's more like the elfin king and queen, you know, in Lord of the Rings. It's more like these beings that are tall and slender, and they're called the good people. The good people. And there's a lot to understand about the history of it all, but I believe that the Tuatha Dé Danann were the original good people that came there. And they say that they came from a heavenly place. And you hear lots of tribes talk about that. We came from the Pleiades. We came from Sirius. We came from different star kingdoms. Well, they say the Tuatha Dé Danann came from a heavenly place to Earth, and they became earthlings, human, and yet they remained quite divine, and that they had many magical powers, that they knew how to live in harmony. That was their biggest power. They knew how to live in harmony with all of the earth energies. And they nurtured the earth energies, and they were able to nurture one another and the plants and the animals. And you think about like Findhorn, where really magical things happen with the plants, you know. Well, the whole Isle of Ireland feels like it was probably that way, like a giant Findhorn. Maybe the whole earth was really that way back then. But in Ireland, you still feel it really strongly. In the 1940s, an Irish writer called Sean O'Faolain recounted how a County Cork woman was asked the question of whether she believed in fairies. And she looked very seriously at him and said, "Well, I do not." But then she had to pause, and she kind of looked around and she said, "But they're here." So, it's inescapable in Ireland, in other words. Whether you believe it or not, you can feel it. They are there. And as we drove around Ireland, we realized that if you just did the old put the pin on the map thing, you know, that almost anywhere that you just randomly put the pin on the map there, you're going to be touching on a sacred site. Because there are sacred sites everywhere that are still known, and they're usually just very natural. Like when you travel around the rest of Europe, you go on pilgrimages to grand cathedrals, but in Ireland you go to the sacred site and you get there, it's like, where is it? And it's like, oh my gosh, it's just this mound of grass. This is the Hill of Tara, the ancient site where the kings of old were decided upon and crowned, and where they lived and held court, and it's a mound of grass. There's no temple built there. In fact, there's an old church that they built there hundreds of years ago, but it's in, you know, it's just sort of over to the side. But that's how it is all over Ireland. These sacred sites are the natural sites, the places of nature. And even there, places like Newgrange, you may have heard of it, you know, it's this ancient place where they would call it the temple of the ancient peoples, but it's built under a mound of grass, you know, so you can hardly see it at all, except for Newgrange. They built it with this shining white facade that was made out of crystal rocks, and so the shining white facade on top of the hill shines out over the countryside, and they've reconstructed it so that you can still see it. But what was under this mound, and many mounds like them, were what archaeologists call the burial places. But even the guides that were leading us around these sites said, they're not really burial places. They were places where they were doing some kind of deep magic, where, yes, the bones were there of their ancestors and the ancient ones, but they were doing some kind of magic that had to do with, could we say, particle acceleration, particle deconstruction and acceleration, union with the cosmos, life that goes beyond form, that goes beyond death. So their ancient practices were very deeply magical, beyond probably what we can even imagine. But as scientists like John Major Jenkins, who's done a lot of research on the ancient pyramids in Egypt and these ancient sites, he sees a common diagram on all of them, and I saw it with my own eyes and took pictures of it on these stones there in Ireland around Knowth and Newgrange. And they're a picture of a boat shaped like this, and it comes up on these ends, and you see that same picture in Egypt related to Isis, and you see it on her head, that boat on her head. So John Major Jenkins says that these boats are like the symbol of the journey that we're on, that we're in these boats together. And then he goes on and does scientific explorations about it and sees that these boats, when he explores what they're shaped like, are shaped like what scientists have just recently come up with that they're calling particle accelerators. So they're the same shape that quantum physicists are making to be able to supposedly deconstruct a human and transport you to another place in the universe. So these are amazing. And the ancient peoples, they had these drawings everywhere. And another drawing that we were shown when we were in Newgrange was this drawing of a human head that had a hole in it in a strange place on the skull. And the guide woman said that that one of the people that came to see her there was a brain surgeon. And he looked at this diagram that these ancient peoples had, and he said, that's weird, because it's exactly like this instrument that we use to place over a human skull to do brain surgery. And so they were doing some kind of ancient brain work with these stones that they had that were shaped like that with a certain hole in them. So you hear them saying that there's ancient knowledge on planet Earth that is transformative beyond our wildest imaginations, and that we are beginning to remember it and tune into it again. So you see what I'm saying about the detour that maybe we've taken, but that we are coming back to some place. And along the way, there have been spiritual guides and great people, good people, that have come along, that have shown us the way, that have reminded us who we are. And in unity, we say that Jesus was one of those way showers. He was one of those good ones. And Mary Magdalene, too, together, that they were showing us a way, that Buddha came along and is a way shower, that Kuan Yin. And I want to talk to you today about one of the way showers that the Irish people all know about in Ireland. His name was Cormac. Have you ever heard of him? King Cormac. Okay, I just want to tell you a little bit about him, because it's good to remember this. You know, we know about Buddha, we know about Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and we're reviving our knowledge of who they truly were, but we need to know about these ancient Irish good people and who they were. So Cormac was a very good lad, it said. He was born of a union between a high king named Cormac of Art and a druid woman. And then he was kidnapped by wolves, and he was brought up by a she-wolf. That was his mother, a wolf, for many, many years. And then one day, townspeople were gathered by a wood, and there was a big thunder and lightning storm, and they saw this young lad come out of the forest, and just as they were watching him, he was struck by lightning. And he afterwards got up. So in a way, was resurrected from the lightning strike. And they all gathered around him, and it was Cormac, who had been with the wolves all those years. And they thought, what are we going to do with this lad? We need to get him somewhere. So they took him to Ulster, to a nearby city where they knew there was a very wise druid, Merlin-type teacher. And so this Merlin-type druid became his other father and continued to raise him. So this young man, Cormac, dwelt in the union of the wildness of nature and of highest culture within himself. He underwent the fosterage, if you will, of nature before he understood the fosterage of culture. Therefore, forever after, he knew within himself the claims upon him of nature first, and of culture second, of Mother Earth first, and of all of her creatures, and then of humans second. That said that he grew into a fair man, a man who had an innate sense of justice and care for the least amongst us, of course. And one day he was walking along in the countryside, and an old woman came up to him, and she was crying and upset, and you know how sometimes a young person could be just like, oh, what's that? You know, I got to get on with my fun things. But he looked at her with great compassion, and he said, what's wrong? And she said, well, all of my sheep have just, during the night, gone and eaten all of the wheat of a rich woman in the town. And now she's saying that for justice to be done, that all my sheep must be given to her. And he said, no, a shearing for a shearing is justice. Do you get it? And so the justice was done. The sheep were sheared, and she was given the wool. And they had sheared her grass, her wheat, you know. And so soon word spread of his wisdom, and it spread all the way to the High King of Tara. And when the High King heard of this young man and knew of his lineage, he got down on his knees and he said to Mother Earth, the new king has arrived. He didn't fight it, he didn't struggle, he admitted it to himself, and then set to work at bringing this young man into the king role. And that was no overnight task or simple thing to do, because to bring in a high king was not a small matter. There was great ritual involved in it, great magic involved in it. There were many mystical tests that the young Cormac had to go through. So the would-be king, first of all, he had to walk through the countryside from town to town, naked. Totally naked. Now, isn't that your worst dream? When you dream at night sometimes, don't you dream that sometimes? That you're caused to walk naked, or at least with something missing, you know? Really, you know? So they were addressing one of the deepest fears of humans, you know, being seen naked, right off the bat. That's your first thing you've got to do. Just walk through all the towns naked, hiding nothing, holding nothing. And then they made him walk what's called the Road of Ashes, which is what he had to walk through bonfires and jump over fires and be smoked. In other words, be cleansed and smoked by the ashes of the ancestors. And so it was another shedding of the ego. Like, you're nothing, boy, you're nothing. You know, like, there are many older than you. There are ancient ones here. Just walk through these bonfires and shed any ego. All the way he walks to the hill of Tara. And then when he arrives there, the first test he must undergo, it may take quite a while, because he has to come within himself to marry the goddess Maeve. And you know the legends about the goddess Maeve. She's the goddess of Ireland, and she appears like a hag or an old crone who's not very attractive and even kind of mean, and she gives him a really hard time for a really long time. And he has to bow to that and do whatever she says and pay homage to the divine feminine within her, no matter what she looks like, and put aside all his notions of beauty and of what he wants out of life, thinking that there's beauty here, I got to go after this beauty. And then when he finally totally does give into that, then she becomes a beautiful young maiden. So it said that he had to lie with feminine foul or fair, and remain loyal to her through all her changes and challenges to be worthy to be the king. Isn't that great? And then there was the king's chariot of Tara. It was yoked to 2 horses of the same color, and they had never been harnessed or ridden before. And they're yoked to this chariot, so they're jumping around and teaming, and so he has to come up to the chariot and get on it. And if he is not the true high king, and does not have the nature that they can feel, they'll just buck him off and be rid of him. But when he mounts the chariot, they feel who he is. He's been with the wolves. He's been with nature. They can feel his companionship with them, and they take off with him, and they ride, and what they have to do is that they have to ride between these 2 standing stones that said are a hand width apart. These 2 standing stones. They're not paper. They're not bamboo. They're standing stones that are hands width apart, and the chariot and he have to ride through them. How does that happen? Not by human typical means, by magic. So he mounts the chariot and he rides through the 2 standing stones. And then the next thing he has to do is that there's the standing stone called the Great Fael, F-A/L. And it's shaped like a penis in the center of Tara on the top of the hill. And you know what? I got to touch it. It's been there 6,000 years, doing its thing. Being at the center of Tara, making all things balanced. And I got to touch it. That stone. In Ireland, they don't protect the sacred sites and keep them from us. Everywhere you go, you can touch these ancient stones and be in these ancient places. So the young Cormac had to ride this speedy chariot right up close to the stone, and it's sort of a round hill that is kind of a tricky place to ride upon. So he was circling in this chariot, I'm sure, circling and circling closer and closer. And when he would get very close to it, if the stone screeched, it's called, screamed out a tone, the stone screamed out a tone, then he was pronounced the High King. The very stones will cry out, Jesus said. The very stones will cry out when a very good person comes along. The High King is a very good human, whose goodness is a model for all of the other kings of Ireland. So the High King, who's married to M.Div, the goddess of fertility, Cormac, came to rule. And it was around the year, they're not exactly sure because it's so long ago, but they think it was around 200 to 400. And that's before Romans and Christianity came to England and Ireland. So it's at the same time that they say King Arthur lived. So this great king, Cormac, is very similar to King Arthur in the King Arthur legends. Who knows, maybe King Arthur was also at the same time in England, in Glastonbury, at the same time that Cormac was there in Ireland. I just want to read you one little excerpt out of this wonderful book, Invoking Ireland. Very magical book, and it talks about what happened in the kingdom when Cormac came to reign in Ireland. Never before or since has there been a time like it. More than swineherds could dream of or imagine, there was beech mast and acorns in the woods. Salmon in the sea and trout ran in the rivers. Cattle were as lovely to look at in March as they were coming down from high grazing ground in October. The calls of grouse calling in the mountains were as bright as their combs. No warrior came home with heads of enemies hanging from the manes of his chariot horses. There was no war. No druid chanted a killing or a maddening incantation. There was no hatred. People died as they lived, at ease with a world they had flourished in. And all of this because Cormac lived the fear flamen, if I can say it right, fear flathimon, which is the faith in the sovereign, divine feminine at the root of it all. So, when we talk about freedom and our nation being a model of good people, we have these ancient models, these people like Cormac who walked the road to Tara and shed his ego. What Cormac represents as High King, as all of us humans who walk north to Tara, to what is royal in us. We hear and receive the call of our people, of our land. We hear and receive the call of our people in our land that's going on right now. And we say, I'm here for freedom. You know, here's where freedom from, I'm free from my ego, and I'm here for freedom. We are being dreamed up by our people. You're alive right now because you were dreamed up by your ancestors. And we're being dreamed up by the people of this great nation, each of us, a king and a queen in the making. And the road to our royalty is our root road, in that it engages us in touching into our deepest roots of who we are. in Mother Earth. We must become one with Mother Earth, each in our own ways, with our own totem animals, if you will. As Cormac was suckled by the she-wolf, we too have animals who are deep within us to nurture us. Our bird, our salmon, our bear. It's a totemic road. It's the road of our deep ancestry that's one with all of life, all our relations. Thus we are claimed as deeply by our nature as by our culture. We are too. We are not lost from our nature. We are claimed deeply by our nature as well as by our culture. Thus we are free to be all of who we are, to be totemically human is what it means to be free. To be able to be safe, to shape-shift out of this form and say, I'm so thankful I was human. Maybe next time I'll be a tree. Maybe next time I'll be a plant. I'm so thankful to be human right now. When we live in this interbeing way with the world of nature, only then do we know how to bring harmony on earth. On the other hand, sometimes our human nature gets usurped by the animal nature from within, and we lose touch with our humanness. Thus, too, is a danger of our life on planet Earth that we humans have to be dealing with, our reptilian brains that can take over. It's this great sense of balance of our humanity, that we are shape-shifting and being one with our animal part and our prefrontal cortex that is our human part, that's uniquely human, that gives us our reasoning ability, like Cormac had, the ability to reason what is good, what is for the highest good here. So Ireland calls us to remember both our animal nature and our human nature. And this is our hope, that we live forward to a time when such great harmony between humanity and the animal nature is in the world once more. That's the little thing for freedom. This is the legend of the once and future king. This is our legend of us as the once and future kings and queens, these royal persons who are on this journey towards freedom, all the way to Tara Hill. Will you walk with me to Tara Hill? There's a hill out beyond all our ideas of separation and despair. There's a green hill, a fairy mound, and I will meet you there.
Oh, I'm going to come with you, Norma. No question. Perhaps that hill is our true home. Heaven and night, the
Recognize that, Bonnie Ray? Now it's time to take our offering, and